now that we have our keys, what we're gonna do first, because this car has a history of fixing itself. What's going on, guys? Aloha, welcome back to the channel. We got some bad news for you. But before I get into that, if you are new to the channel, welcome. This is my beautiful 2007 Silverado. I love this truck to death. But one thing I don't love and absolutely hate is this thing behind me, also known as my wife's Mercedes. I'm so done with this car. I am so done with this car. So fun story, if this is your first video, you probably wouldn't have seen the last one, but if you saw the last one, we were in a beautiful state called Idaho, and it was actually not bad of a trip. It was a gorgeous trip, but the fun part was when we landed, hopped back in this car, the wife's Mercedes. We were driving home from the airport, about halfway home, and then all of a sudden, this 4-cylinder supercharged motor decided, I don't want to run on 4 cylinders, let's run on 3 cylinders. So we are currently down 1 cylinder, have no idea why. I got a check engine light and a substantial loss of power. So we putted all the way home. Fortunately, did not have to pay for a tow truck. We did in fact get this thing home, but we are at a point now, we got to figure out what we're doing with this. So here are my options. We can set it on fire, push it into a large body of water, set it on fire, and then push it into a large body of water. Or the last thing, we can actually try to figure out what's wrong with it and keep it running. So unfortunately, the last one is what we're doing today. We're gonna try to figure out why this thing is running on 3 cylinders by utilizing a process that I've come to know and love because of this stupid thing. So we have a check engine light. The question is, if you get a check engine light, what are some things you can do to figure out what's wrong and go about fixing it? These are the steps I've used and it's worked out pretty well for me so far. At this point in the video, I have no idea what's wrong with it, but we're gonna figure it out, and by pride, we're gonna keep this thing running. All right, so to get this thing started off, this has been sitting here for about 24 hours now because I had no time to start working on it until now. In order to work on the car, we need keys. Babe, thank you. So what we're gonna do first, because this car has a history of just suddenly fixing itself. We're gonna see if it's fixed itself overnight. Definitely not. So this camera's actually got a stabilizer in it, so you won't be able to tell it's shaking, but you put it in drive, just listen to it. So keep in mind, we actually drove it home puttering like that, like nearly an hour. That was bad. What we have right now is a car that's running terrible, a check engine light, and no idea what's wrong. So step number 1 is going to be check the check engine light. Now, if that check engine light is on, it's highly likely you have a trouble code synced within the system. The question is, what is that code? Before I acquired my own handy, call it DTC code reader, I used to go to AutoZone or O'Reilly's, ask them to pull the code. They were polite enough to just plug it in, pull the code, and then I would go from there. But because since I do have my own, again, these are pretty cheap nowadays. You can get these pretty cheap off Amazon. So if you get check engine lights pretty often, go check those out. But we're gonna plug mine in and see what code gets pulled up. Now, what I've always done in the past, turn the car off. Underneath the dashboard, you'll have a plug that looks somewhat like this. There's only one way to plug it in, so you can't do it wrong. Now for Mercedes, of course, it's tucked away here. There's this little plastic piece. You gotta pop this down. So plug that in, and then my DTC code reader turns on. At this point, turn the ignition to the on position. Don't start the car. Just turn it to on. And then this will do its work. There we have it. So we have only one trouble code, fortunately, just one of one. We have a P0303 code reading. Now, some of these do tell you a brief description of what it might be. This is saying cylinder 3 misfire detected. So my assumption with running on 3 cylinders was probably right. We have 1 cylinder misfiring. Initial thoughts, that could be spark, fuel, or air. One of the 3. That or the motor's just crapping out finally. So here comes the fun part. Now that we know what the trouble code is, this is where the handy internet comes in handy. So grab a local computer, whatever you have, and I'm going to use use this car as a desk because that's its only value add in life right now. So we have a trouble code, we have a brand of vehicle. I'm gonna go ahead and type that into Google. So we have a 2000 Mercedes C230, and it's a P0303 code. All right, so there's a few YouTube videos up right now, conveniently. Looks like there's a misfire code here from Robert DIY, Scotty Kilmore, that crazy dude that does automotive fixes, Peter Finn. Looks like these are some imports. But let's scroll down here to see what some forums say. So we have Mercedes engine misfire problem. Let's check that one out maybe. And then here's actually one. Code P0303, number 3, cylinder misfire, Mercedes-Benz form. So usually when you have a problem like this, fortunately most of the time you're not the first person to ever experience it. So let's check out what we can find out here. So hang tight real quick. We're going to do some research to see what we can find out and see where we can start to fix this problem. All right, guys, the fun thing about Mercedes is they overcomplicate their engineering. So anything German made is always super expensive to fix, and it's always extremely complicated. But the fun thing about cars is essentially they all run regardless if they are made in Japan, made in America, or made in Germany. They run on 3 things. You need air, you need fuel, and you need spark. Essentially, those are the 3 key factors to make an engine run. Now, given this is much more complex with several different electrical systems that control everything, it makes it more of a nightmare. But what we're going to do first is figure out where the issue is happening and where it's coming from. Now, according to my code reader, it says cylinder 3 has a misfire. Now, I'm not sure exactly which one is cylinder 3, if it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 3, 2, 4, what order it is. So what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to start it up. Since the car does run, it does chug quite a bit, but it does run. And I'm going to go ahead and start it up and unplug the injectors. So I believe these are the plugs for the 4 injectors. Now, if you unplug these, it will not be injecting any fuel. So if you unplug the injector of the cylinder that's having issues, you won't see any fluctuation in the way it's running. Now, if you unplug an injector that's actually working properly and it runs on 2 cylinders instead of 4, you'll see a big difference. So we're going to start it up, start unplugging one at a time to figure out which one is cylinder 3. And then from there, we'll move into what it could possibly be. But again, super simple. Air, fuel, spark is what a motor needs to run. So we're going to start with the fuel. I don't care if I blow my motor, so here's the one. I unplug this. There's no change at all in the way the motor's running. I'm going to unplug cylinder number 2, which I believe, and it just about dies. Plug that back in, and it runs back to where it was. So number 3, that's the one I'm going to check out. Oh my gosh, it smells awful. So by just the smell of my garage right now, I'm assuming that the fuel portion is still working in that cylinder. My assumption is that it's pouring fuel into cylinder number 3 and not sparking or burning, so it's just pushing raw fuel out the exhaust. Now, all my Prius owners will be really, really appreciative of that. You're welcome, guys. Now, this is telling me this is a cylinder that's having issues. So next steps are, we're gonna check the spark plugs. So spark plugs on this car are underneath this cover, so I'm gonna pull this cover off, pull out spark plug number 3 for cylinder number 3. We're gonna take a look how it looks. Just I'll loosen it up. All right, so underneath that little cover, we have, again, 4 cylinders, so there's 4 spark plugs here. We have our plug wires with the plug boot here, there, and there. I believe this is the injector coil, so there's gonna be another plug like this underneath here. I'm assuming this is number 3, so this is the boot we're gonna pull off. So just pull up, don't rip anything, try not to break anything. So there's boot number 3. Actually, it's really clean in here, funny enough. For perspective, this car's got 271,000 miles. I don't remember when these plugs were changed last. So I'm gonna get a spark plug wrench, get it in there, pull that spark plug out and see what it looks like. It's because I'm not really sure. Holy crap, that was loose. Plug. Yeah, but plug actually looks not bad at all. Curious if the wire's bad. I was hoping it was fouled out. That would really make this job a lot easier. But plug looks completely fine. So must be something else. Now I did forget one thing that is highly recommended when you do pull these covers off before you open up and pull out the spark plugs. Either get compressed air and blow all this crap out, or get a vacuum and suck whatever dirt or grime that's in here, because you don't want that falling into the cylinder head once you pull the plug out. So I actually stuck the plug back in real quick. I'm gonna grab this vacuum and then go ahead and suck all this crap out, and then we'll continue. All right, since number 3 looked just fine, I'm gonna go ahead and start pulling these other plugs and see what they look like. Well, strange enough, guys, all the plugs look completely fine. They not charred, no residue, they're completely clean. So that's, I guess you'd say good news, but that's not going to be the problem. So I was assuming a foul of the plug. That wasn't the case. So what I'm doing now, I'm putting all the plugs back in, and I'm going to swap these coils. So these coils, I believe they're actually interchangeable. There's going to be 2 in here. One controls number 1 and number 2. The other one controls number 3 and number 4. I'm going to swap these 2 and see if the problem moves from cylinder 3 to another cylinder. If that happens, I know it's one of these. So we're going to try that next. So we're all plugged back in. Still running rough. Let's try this out again. I'm going to pull this again on cylinder 3. Oh, the problem moved. All right. All right, well, there's our problem now. So it moved from there to number 1. So it's number 3 to number 1. Is it the same coil? All right. Okay, some interesting things happened. So originally the problem was cylinder number 3, which is right here. So I unplugged the injector. Nothing happened before, but this time I unplugged it and it bogged completely, which meant this was running correctly. Now the problem is at number 1. All right, well, cylinder number 1. Guys, we're making progress. We are narrowing it down. So as I unplugged it, nothing happened. So it's not the plug, it's actually either the plug wire or the coil feeding this wire. So next steps for me, of course, because it's a German car, I highly doubt O'Reilly's or AutoZone has those parts, but we're gonna check anyways. And if they do, we can come replace them and see if that fixes it. I'm hoping that's the case. And of course, as luck would have it, my check engine light's on now. Great. So wifey has to get in the attic. Goodbye. All right, guys, moment of truth. We have AutoZone came in clutch. Believe it or not, AutoZone had a part that should work for what I believe is a burnt out coil. So I'm gonna pop this new one in and cross my fingers it fixes the problem. Thank you, AutoZone, for staying open until 10 p.m. at night, because it is now 10:30 and I am determined to finish this crap tonight. All right, please work.
Something! I mended it!
You changed the bulb.
I totally feel like Jeremy Clarkson right now when he mends something.
I mended it!
Hey, Texas has lotto, right? Should we get a lotto ticket? So I totally guessed and got lucky. Guys, it's fixed. Woo! All right, so $84 at AutoZone. And we have a proper running Mercedes again. Ah. Super relieved / slightly disappointed, because I did want to introduce this to its fiery death. But anyways, let's clean this up a little bit. I gotta put everything back together, but safe to say, I think we're good to go. I'm gonna drive it to work tomorrow, just FYI, to make sure it makes it there and back. Can I take the check? No. engine's idling really well. A lot better than it was, so that's a good sign. All right, let's take it for a spin. I think we're in the clear. Everything seems to be running perfect. Car runs super smooth. Took it through the RPM ranges. No issues. The check engine light is still on. Not sure why. But let's go ahead and park this thing tonight. I'll be taking it to work tomorrow, so we'll really see how it does in 103-degree weather and traffic. That'll be the real test. So that's gonna do it for tonight, guys. Guys, good news. So it came out this morning, we're leaving for work, but we started the car up and no check engine light. So we should be in the clear. The car's idling just fine. Ran fine on the test drive last night, but it's time to go to work. So that fun part of the day is about to begin. So again, if you guys want to try this method out, it's worked out for me for the last several years. If I get a check engine light, I either go to O'Reilly's or AutoZone. If you have your own DTC code reader, just plug it in, see what's wrong. Google is your best friend. Now Google what's going on, whatever code it is, whatever vehicle you have, and it's highly likely that someone else out there has had the same problem as you. Use that research, use your intuition, play around with it, figure out what's going on, and try and fix it. So fortunately, 85 bucks, put this thing back on the road, and unfortunately, I can't set it on fire now because it's running just fine. But I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Hopefully it provided some kind of value. If it did, smash that like button below. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, guys, consider subscribing and be part of the Lonestar Hawaiian family. We have a new vehicle coming to the channel very soon. It's going to be epic. I cannot wait for this car. But until next time, as always, y'all take care. Aloha and enjoy the ride.